There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of mediation, The Court of Human Relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation, helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
It was Aldous Huxley who said, "The smallest fact is a window through which we can see the infinite." And these conflicts of real life, quite aside from anything else, are revealing because I think they reproduce in miniature the greater dramas common to all the peoples of the world. Somewhere it is written that the souls of emperors and cobblers are cast in the same mold, and the identical reasons of fear, ambition, pride, jealousy that cause individuals to wrangle with each other are, of course, the very factors that bring about a war between kings. Now, here is a case that is appealing and revealing because it is this kind of trifle, or apparent trifle, that makes up the happiness or the misery of this life. The issue is submitted for hearing and settlement to a board comprising a noted observer and critic of our time, Miss Virginia Peterson, a famed pulpit figure, minister of the largest church of its denomination in the world. From Los Angeles, California, Dr. L. Wendell Fifield, and an eminent jurist and member of the bar, Judge William A. Wachenfeld. Now here is the young lady who is the complainant.
Have you ever had any parakeets? Well, whether you have or you haven't, parakeets are a very sensitive and delicate creature. They're just wonderful, and they need a lot of care and attention.
Do you feel that they're rather helpless?
Oh, yes, they certainly are. I've had parakeets ever since I was about 10 years old, and I've always loved and cared for them very much, and I've always thought that everybody else loved them.
And what happened a few months ago?
Well, a few months ago, I met a young man who was very kind and affectionate. We had many mutual interests, and we saw a great deal of each other, and I began to fall in love with him. So,
what happened a few weeks ago?
Well, a few weeks ago, I invited him to my home for dinner, and we have a large dining room, one end of which I keep the birds. Now, the minute he saw the birds and they began to make noise, he got violently angry and he got completely upset, so I didn't know what to do. And my mother had prepared a very lovely roast chicken dinner, none of which was eaten. He didn't eat any, and as a result, I didn't eat any.
Would you say that this young man became rather irritable and quarrelsome?
Definitely, yes. He was very upset and very, very quarrelsome, and the evening was ruined completely.
And what were the qualities that attracted you originally to this young man? How did you feel about him originally?
Well, he was very sensitive and affectionate, and we had everything in common, so I thought we could make a happy go of it.
And when he proposed to you, actually you accepted him, is that right?
I accepted him, and I thought everything would be fine till he saw the birds.
Yes, and what did he say about the birds?
Well, he said he couldn't stand birds, and that at the time when he came to my house for dinner, he said I should please take them from the room.
And what is the situation now?
He said, in view of our marriage, I would have to get rid of the birds. And this is something I cannot do. I said to him, I simply cannot do it.
Well, are you telling us, as strange as it seems, that this incident over the birds is actually interfering with your marital plans and your life?
Yes, it's created bad feelings, and it's been a definite block between our marriage plans.
How long have you had birds?
I've had them ever since I was about 10 years old. My oldest bird is about 13 years old.
Yes. And how many birds did you say you have?
I have 5, and I've just gotten 4 new babies.
Mm-hmm. And what do these birds represent to you?
They're like part of the family.
And you came here to have this settled?
Yes, it must be settled.
Well, now, suppose we hear from the respondent.
Well, all I can say is that any girl or any person who will let birds stand in the way of a marriage or a human relationship, I just can't understand. I feel like every time that I go up the house, it's like I'm going into a zoo, and I hear these birds chirping all the time, and it just irritates me. When I had dinner over the house, I just couldn't digest my food right.
Well, do you feel that birds aren't that important, that there are more important things in life?
I think there are more important things in life. In fact, this whole situation seems so petty, and that the world is so full of problems. And why do these birds have to present us with such a big problem? When we get married, we're going to have problems. Why make this such a big issue?
Well, will you describe the scene in the dining room when you entered the room and saw the birds? What was your reaction?
Well, I've never cared for birds, parakeets or canaries, anything that's in a cage in a house. It seems to me like a house is a private place where you have a family, you have friends, but birds that seem to they jump around, you let them out of the cage, they jump on your head, on your leg, and they just get in your way, in your hair. Now, birds in their own atmosphere outside, fine, I don't mind them. But birds in a house just irritate me, and I can't stand it. Now, in the house, when we had dinner, it just irritated me to the point that I got indigestion. I just couldn't eat my food.
You just don't like birds.
I don't like birds, and I can't see why these birds have to come between us.
Now, just so the board can get the complete picture, what about other animals, dogs and cats?
Dogs, cats are fine, because I feel that dogs and cats have some kind of a feeling, a sensitivity that you can play with them. They can understand you.
Well, birds have feelings.
Birds may have feelings, but they don't seem to have feelings to me. They seem to be cold. They jump around, they jump around the cage, they bite on the cage, they eat their food. That's all they do during the day, and they peep. And that noise just...
You can't stand the noise, the chattering and the
chattering just drives me crazy.
Well, he
And
says...
I just can't see why this has to be such a big thing, such a petty little thing like this has to come between us.
That's right, but you're making the fuss about it, and it's a petty thing, so
Of
why don't
course
you
I'm
just let
making
it
the
get?
fuss about it, because it is such a petty thing, and why should this stand in the way? When we get married, look, now in your house, fine. They can stay there. Fine. Your parents like them. If they like them, fine. I know
have
your
to
father
take
doesn't
care
like
of
them.
them.
Every time I go into the house, we have a little private joke or something. But
Well, now, suppose we get to the bottom of this. You feel that not you, but this young man is the one that's making the issue of this?
Certainly. Those birds have to be taken care of. I have various birds, they're various ages, and he knows it. Pussy needs a special diet. I have to take out the carbohydrate seeds from her food, and there are millions of things to do. I have a bird that's pregnant, and the breeding box has to be changed daily, the water has to be changed, and my parents can't do it. And
Well, what
he's
about
the one
this?
that-
Suppose, now you'll have a chance to respond. We want to find out about the interest of this young lady in birds. You say you have a little bird, Pussy. Tell us about that.
Well, I have 2 pussies. There's Pussy the first, and there's Pussy the second. Now, Pussy the first was originally named Petey because we thought she was a he. And then later on we renamed her Pussy when we found out that she was a she. And Pussy the second was named after Pussy because it was such a nice name. And anyway, there aren't many words beginning with P, female words. So.
How old is Pussy? Pussy the first?
Pussy the first is about 13.
Yeah, and you've had...
I've had her since she was about 3 months old.
Now, do you experiment with the food in connection with these birds?
Yeah, I keep charts on the wall of my room which tells what each pair of parakeets get. That is, I feed about 4 different types of mixtures.
Well, what are the names of other birds?
There's Patsy, Pussy the first, Pussy the second, Patsy, Puff, and Night.
Now, beside this special mixture, is there any other mixture that you're fond of?
There's a mixture that has cod liver oil in it. That's conditioned food, and that's very important, especially for the babies.
Mm-hmm. And you train these birds?
Yes, I play records to teach them how to talk, and they haven't learned how to talk yet, but they like the record, so I play it.
And by and large, how many hours would you say per day, just roughly, do you give to the care and attention of these birds?
I would say up to 5 hours a day. So you can see it's very important.
Well, this bird thing seems to be more important to you than I mean to you. But why make such a big issue about it? Why say that when we get married, fine, a friend can take care of your birds, and that you can visit your friend, or you can leave them home with your parents, and you can feed them, you can breed them, and everything like that. But I don't want birds in my house.
Do most of your friends have birds?
All my friends have birds.
Do you feel that this then goes to the basis of your social life, that if you have a husband, you want the husband to be interested in birds so that you can invite friends and they invite you and you talk about not bridge or golf or television, but birds?
That's right. One of my best friends lives over on the east side. She has approximately 40 birds, and she breeds them continuously so that they grow in number each week almost.
Would you like your future husband to visit this friend?
Definitely. She's one of my best friends, and I see her about twice a week, so it would be very unusual if he didn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you feel, frankly, sir, that if that is the kind of interest that this young girl has in birds, that you just can't take that? What do you want in your marriage?
I want in my marriage, I want to have a family. I want my wife to be happy. I want to have kids. I want to have a big family. And I want the kids running around the house, enjoying themselves. And I want to have a house with a place where there's peace and quiet, and the only noise, the chattering of the kids running around and having fun and playing together. Maybe the kids are like birds, I don't know. But I just can't take to birds. And if it's going to come to the point where you say you want birds, I don't know, it's starting to bug me right now. What is going to happen? Where are we going? Is this going to relationship just going to have to end because we can't come to an understanding over these birds?
Well, let's find out. We address this question very directly to this complainant. Are you prepared to go into a marriage, now that this is all right out on the table, if this young man can't be more tolerant about the birds? The birds mean so much to you that you're not prepared to give them up.
More important than me.
Are the birds that important to you so that you're not prepared to give them up?
Mm-hmm. I can't give these birds up. I've had some of them since I've been only 10 years old, and they're just like they're more than part of the family.
Miss Peterson?
I don't think it matters whether they're birds or not so much. I have the feeling that they're symbols of something on which these two people can't get together. and that if it weren't birds, it would be something else, and that there's really not much use in trying.
Judge Walkenfeld?
Well, I think it just demonstrates how little things become of great importance. And here we have difficulty because of a hobby that the young lady indulges in and apparently enjoys to a very large extent. And we have also the conflict where the man can't get along with them, and the girl will not get along without them. And until that conflict is resolved, then they're incompatible. They can't have a marriage based upon conflicts over minor things of that size.
I
And
wouldn't
this
say
girl-
that the birds were minor.
Well, Judge
Well,
Walkenfeld, do you
they're
really
not.
mean that after hearing this recital from this girl, in which she literally tore her heart out, and from the very core of her being, you've seen the affection and tenderness that she has for these birds, that this is minor to her?
Call it what you like. Call them parakeets instead of calling them minor. They're birds, and it's a hobby, and it's a well-known fact that girls of her age, no matter whether it's birds, whether it's horses, or whether it's dogs, the hobby sometime comes to an end. The same fondness and the same rapture that they got in their early youth goes by. She has here an opportunity of marriage. She can't have it strictly on her own terms. If she can't meet the man that she wants to marry at least halfway and solve her problem, then they are, as far as I am concerned, as I've said before, incompatible. And the young lady has a sad choice. She has to give up something that she likes, and it's for her to evaluate whether she loves this man better than she does this hobby. But may I say this, that I think the marriage, and I'm hopeful that it will be successful, will be of greater duration than any hobby that this girl has at the present time.
Well, a lot of marriages don't last 10 years. She's had this marriage with the birds for 10 years.
Yes, and people don't get married at the tender years at which she started having birds either.
But, sir, I've had these birds, some of them since they were only 3 weeks old. I mean, they know me better than they know their own mother or father, and they depend on me, and they know me, and they need me.
My dear, nobody quarrels with you. The fact that you are very much in love with these birds and you feel a great sense of sacrifice because they do, as you say, they depend upon you. And it's up to you to solve this problem, and I think it's been put to you fairly well by this boy who has appeared before us tonight. He says, I just can't stand them. To me, they're an obsession. And I'm sorry, but if you want me, you'll have to get along without them. Now, isn't there some place in your makeup by which you can come to a conclusion as to which you would rather have? And I'm afraid that's what you've got to decide.
Well, now, we address the complainant. Do you have an interest in birds and in animals beyond those in your own home? Tell us about that.
Yes. I was thinking of opening up a pet shop. I've been thinking about this for a long time now, and I was hoping that the man I would marry would help me with it. They would have to be birds, and I can't do it by myself. It requires a man.
And when animals are neglected, does that concern you?
Oh, definitely. Yes. I would open
I
up.
don't neglect animals. It's not that I don't have feelings for animals. It just happens to be birds.
But they're
Every something
animals,
bothers
too.
somebody, birds bother me.
But birds
You
are
have
animals.
friends who have birds. Why not let them take care of the birds?
Well, just so we can, and I think this is helpful to you, sir, because you want to get the point of view and the attitude. I think the girl understands your position, but I think it's necessary for the members of this board to understand just how much this girl is interested in this sort of thing. What happened in connection with neglected animals or birds?
Well, I remember one time when our neighbor's dog was barking. This neighbor also has parakeets and I think some canaries. I remember the dog was barking for hours and hours and hours and hours. So I thought there must be something wrong. Perhaps these people went away over the weekend and they just left their animals alone in the house. So I thought something should be done about it because there are a lot of these cases, and Few people, I think few people do.
Yes, well, now
do
we're going to
something
ask
about
you to get to the point. What did you do because the birds were apparently neglected and the dog was barking for days and nobody came?
I called the SPCA, and I told the man what was happening. I said, I feel these animals are being neglected. And he said he can't help me with it because the ASPCA only handles stray animals on the street and ones without a home. So I said, what should I do? And he said, call up the Audubon Society. So I called them up, and they said, why don't you call up the ASPCA? So it was rather hopeless. And
Well, in any event,
bothering me.
these animals, or pets or birds, were indoors and nobody could get at them, and
That's
you were
right.
very disturbed about them, and this is typical of your concern. Well, certainly, if ever an issue was clear, this is. I see no purpose, Judge Walkenfeld, in belaboring this point anymore. You're tender-hearted behind that grim-faced visage, and you'd like very much to see this young girl have a good husband rather than have a lot of birds. But the fact remains that she loves the birds, and she loves them an awful lot. How do you feel about that, Dr. Fifield?
Well, in my profession, I'm always interested in asking myself, will it last? Is there any promise of permanence in a proposed marriage? I see no promise of permanence in this marriage. If a matter of this sort, even before they're married, when people are supposed to be particularly tender and unselfish, could create this situation, I see no hope whatsoever. And I just think it's the marriage that's got to go to the birds.
Ms. Peterson?
I agree with Dr. Fifield.
Judge Walkenfeld?
I still maintain my original status of what I said. I think this girl should consider it further. This is purely a hobby. It may pass within 6 months or a year, although she wouldn't believe it now. And the opportunity she has for marriage, if she values it, is something that will prove to be a greater asset with greater returns and greater happiness and mean more to her in her future than the birds will ever mean to her. And in this life, we must make choices of the good and the bad and the greater and the lesser values.
Well, I think it's clear that Judge Walkenfeld is very much concerned and perhaps very much disturbed that you would forego, because it's clear that that's what you'll be doing, foregoing the possibility of a good marriage for these birds. But as we understand it, you don't want to give up the birds if in order to get married you'd have to give them up. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, it is true that this was one of those tremendous trifles that we so often encounter. But cutting through all other considerations and reducing this to its essential elements, it is the conclusion of this board, and I think Judge Walkenfeld as well, after the statement of the young woman. Certainly he can't, through force, make her marry the man, and he has no intention of doing it. That if the birds mean as much to the girl as they do, and this is something that she grew up with and isn't just a superficial hobby, and she'd consider it cruel to be forced to give them up. Would you consider it cruel?
Certainly, very cruel.
And if the young man simply can't overcome his aversion to what's involved here, as he says he can't, can you overcome the aversion? Can you overcome your aversion to birds?
All I can say is that I love her and I want to marry her and I feel that I can give her a decent home.
But can you overcome your aversion to birds?
Maybe if I kept them in another room.
I'm not making enough money to have a 7-room house.
Well, maybe they could find a house that was large enough so that the chattering and chirping wouldn't be heard, but of course that places an extra burden on the marriage. It would seem that the elements essential to a successful marriage are simply lacking, and the only consoling factor, and I think it's a substantial one, and I'm sure the board does too, is that it's better to find out this situation now than it is later. And so we extend our thanks to our mediators and bring to a close another session of the Court of Human Relations. I think I should make it clear, and very clear, that successful mediation does not necessarily mean happy endings. Unfortunately, a lack of frankness and forthrightness is one of the aspects of marriage and unfortunate human relations, as everyone knows, which interferes. And certainly it's better that these people find out now than later. Life is made up of a number of things, and we know that there are a number of desirable qualities for a human being to possess. But in concluding this session, it has been said that a sense of humor is the just balance of all the faculties of man, the best security against the prides and conceits of man, the strongest inducement to submit with a wise patience to the trials, the inconstancies, the vicissitudes of life.